All right, a little bit from the Baylor loss to Utah. There was improvement in many, many ways, but they had the lead, and I thought as I watched the second half that it seemed as if they were dummying down a little bit and just trying not to lose. Come to find out, Sawyer Robertson, who I thought played well but had a couple of deadly picks too, that he had rolled his ankle, and I saw the video of the play. I could see where that happened, and that may have changed what they could possibly do. But the bottom line is they also had 10 men on the field when Utah had a chance to come and tie the game during that drive. They didn't have a safety, they didn't have a second safety on the field, and they gave up a big play during that game. Did they play better? Yes. Utah's not somebody that's going to go out and put 56 points on the board. They struggled. Their quarterback, Barnes, was not good at all. They brought in Johnson, who's fantastic in my opinion, but they won. Utah did not change. They did not blink, whether it was 13-3 or what. They do what they do, and they ended up winning the game. A nice win for Coach Whittingham and his Utes program.
I thought they should have brought in Johnson a little bit earlier. Barnes just looked like he was stuck out there, and there was a play towards the end of the first half where Barnes was scrambling out of bounds and going to the sideline, and Matt Jones tackled him over there, and it was the longest run to the sideline I've ever seen. I'm like, man, they've got to do something here to create some kind of spark. Both teams, but I was surprised they didn't go to Johnson and just see if he could confuse the Baylor defense enough, which eventually he did. And Baylor, man, they're on a 6-game skid, guys. They're going back to last year. They have not won in a long time. And it is hard to see through how you can get to consistently winning when seemingly every game is lost because of a different reason. So they don't have everybody playing well at the same time. They just can't get on the same page, and that's just troubling.
Yeah, it was a very disappointing outcome given that you had a prime opportunity to reverse your fortunes. It was right there for the taking. Double-digit, or 2-score lead, in the second half, home crowd behind you. Hot day that should have played into your favor. It was brutally hot too. That was that was the tip of the ice, or that was the end of the heat wave, I think, was on Saturday, because now it's 95 and it feels like it's 72. It was brutal on Saturday. First of all, I want to give credit to Utah fans for traveling as well as they did. There was a lot of red there. They were very loud. Not really throughout the whole game, but especially there at the end. They were loud, but they really got into it, at the end when they took the lead and they were about to win. Then you could really hear them pouring it on. But they traveled well. Hope that, the majority or all of the folks that came into town had a, good time. And, that's going to be a conference game moving forward. So look forward to the trip to Salt Lake City, and then, the meetings that come afterward in the years that follow. But that was a winnable game. I'm with you. Bryson Barnes was not it. He was not very good at all. And Nate Johnson came in and made a big difference for them, and Baylor didn't really have much of an answer for him. But just bad execution. It's like Aranda said, they had the energy, they had the effort, they just did not have the execution. And they had multiple moments in that game where they could have put their foot down and extended a lead and made it impossible for a comeback.
Or just a 7-minute, 5-minute drive.
Or just stay on the freaking field on offense for more than 30 seconds and a 3 and out. But they just couldn't do it. And, Sawyer Robertson's ankle, I know immediately everything Aranda says is an excuse, and it's no, he's just answering a question.
Right.
But when you look at the fact that Sawyer Robertson had run for a touchdown in that game, and that he had run, on some other plays, and that's kind of how you kept Utah's defense off balance. When he suddenly couldn't run, well, guess what? That did complicate things, because that was a play, or at least something that you could do offensively that was a good option for you that was suddenly not there. So that did have an effect, but to the point of where they just went 3 and out basically every drive down the stretch. Spare me. You got to figure it out. Other teams figure it out. You got to figure it out. However that needs to happen. But Utah deserves a ton of credit, especially on defense. They didn't really play all that well. Didn't have full strength. Were on the road, and they just hung around and kept it close. And then when they got their opportunity, they took full advantage and they went and won the game. And that's what good teams and good programs do. And that's why you are year after year consistent And that's why Baylor is just falling further and further down, because when it's time to make the plays or it's time to put in the kill shot or it's time to go finish it, they cannot finish. Yep. They cannot finish to save their life.
From Brian, who sent me this on Twitter, love y'all's show. Thank you. I hear people say the play calling at the end was not to lose. I was at the game, rewatched the game, felt like they still took shots, but Sawyer was late, misrating, and also the overthrow. Overall, Sawyer, like Sawyer, but made freshman mistakes. We'll listen tomorrow. Thanks for your tweet, Brian. We appreciate that. I didn't know about, I thought that they kind of hit the throttle. Or they kind of put, what do you do that in NASCAR? What do they have that keeps them from going too fast?
The brakes?
The governor?
No, the governor. I thought they kind of did that. Come to find out, Sawyer rolled his ankle. How much that came into play, we don't know. Dave Miranda didn't really discuss that much today. And we're not allowed to talk to the coordinators, but it does seem as if, and that's up, Brian, it's fine. But the bottom line is, there was a third down and like 5 or whatever, and they ran the ball between the tackles. It was reminiscent of a couple of times they did that against Texas State. They're not good enough to do that, although the running game was better. The offensive line was a hell of a lot better than what they were against Texas State, but that means anything because they were terrible in that game with Texas State.
Yeah, and hopefully that ankle injury isn't lingering. I mean, if they got 2 quarterbacks that are gonna be banged up, and like Blake Shapen, could be back in a couple weeks, but you don't know how much that's going to linger, or if he gets hurt again, and ankles or nothing's easy. So everything's kind of not coming up. What's the opposite of roses?
Thorns.
Yeah, whatever it is, they're just nothing's going their way, and they get a get-right game against Long Island. The problem is that you get a get-right game, and then you have to play the number 4 team in the country the week after that. And then you've got to go on the road where you're classically not that great anyway, into a place you've never been in what's going to be a really hyped-up atmosphere. And then you come back, and you get to play Texas Tech, who by that time is probably going to be pretty well liquored up and pissed off,
Well, they've also at least
might not matter.
competed.
Yeah, they don't really have room to be talking right now, quite frankly. That might be a battle of 2 teams who both desperately need a win at that point, with all due respect. But
restrictor plate was what I was thinking about. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah. No, it was a bad loss. It was one that very well should have and could have been a win. But credit again to Utah, and I hate it for Aranda. I mean, they definitely made a positive step. The offensive line was much better. There were some things on defense as far as young guys making plays, but it's just like you don't have the luxury of building this thing over the long haul. That's what's supposed to have been happening the last 4 years, not restarting in year 4, and that's almost what it feels like, right? And that's just not what the expectation is, and that's not what the fans are patient for right now. Like, that was fine in year 1 and year 2, and hey, it was COVID year and blah, blah, blah. And then, but last year was the year, if you were going to sit there and like have a mulligan or you were going to take a step back, it was last year. To come back this year after all the change and you're in worse position, that's just, that's hard to wrap your head around, and it's kind of hard to excuse.
Also, this one super